Jesus Christ. Today we are reading Joshua chapter 3. Let's read from verse 1 to 4. Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. After 3 days, the officers went through that camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 2,000 cubits between you and the ark, and do not go near it. If you see from verse 1 to 6, the Hebrews, when you read Hebrews 11, the great faith chapter of Scripture, you discover that the people mentioned that all did something because they believed God. Their faith was not passive feeling, it was active force, because living faith always leads to action. For as the body without spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. In verse 5 and verse 6 we see Joshua told the people, consecrate yourself, for tomorrow the Lord your God will do amazing things among you. Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on the head of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. The ark of the covenant was the throne of God, the place where his glory rested, the tabernacle. And God sat between cherubim. The law of the God was kept in the ark as a reminder of God's covenant with his Israel, and the blood of sacrifices was sprinkled on the atonement cover on the annual day of atonement. In verse 4 we see the people had not traveled this way before. They needed God to guide them, but they were not to get too close to the ark, for this was a holy piece of furniture from the tabernacle, and it was not to be treated carelessly. God is our companion as we go through life, but we dare not treat him like a buddy. Let's read from verse 1, 7 to 8. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you, and as I was with Moses. Tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan water, go and stand in the river. We see in the verse 8, the priests would have also stand in the middle of the riverbed until all the people had passed over. When the priests arrived on the other side, the waters would return to their original condition. It took faith and courage for these priests to do their job, but they trusted God and relied on faithfulness of his word. Verse 9 to 13. Let's read from verse 9 to 13. Joshua said to the Israelites, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out all before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Gerasites, Amorites, and Jebusites. See, the ark of the Lord, ark of the covenant of the Lord of all earth, will go into the Jordan ahead of you. And now, then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe, and as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in heap. If you see from verse 9 to 13, having instructed the priest bearing the ark, Joshua then shared the words of the Lord with people. He did not magnify himself, he magnified the Lord and his gracious blessings to the nation. True spiritual leaders focuses the eyes of God's people and on the Lord and in his greatness. If you are in a position of leadership, consider how you might draw attention to God's glory and his promises rather than your own services. Let's read from verse 14 to 17. So when people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priest carrying the ark of the covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is at a flood stage, all during harvest, yet As soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from the upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Jerusalem, while the water flowing down to the Sea of Arba, that is Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priests who carried the Ark of Covenant of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on the dry ground, while all the Israelites passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. We see in these verses, during most of the year, the Jordan River was about 100 feet wide, but at the spring flood season, the river overflowed its banks and became a mile wide. As soon as the priests bearing the ark put their feet into the river, the water stopped flowing and stood like a wall about 20 miles away upstream near a city called Adam. It was a miracle of God in response to faith of the people. In verse 15 we see when God opened the Red Sea, he used a strong wind that blew the whole night before, and this was not an accident, for the wind was blast of God's nostril. When Moses lifted his hand, the wind began to flow, and when he lowered his hand, the waters flowed back and drowned the Egyptian army. When Israel crossed the Jordan River, it was not the obedient arm of the leader that brought the miracle, but the obedient feet of the people. Unless we are willing to step out by faith and obey his word, God can never open the way for us. All Israel crossed on the dry ground. The book of Hebrews was written to challenge God's people to go on a spiritual maturity and not to backward in unbelief. In Hebrews 3-4, the writer used Israel's experience at Kadesh Barnea to warn foolish Christians not to come short of all that God had planned for them. We never stand still in the Christian life. We either move forward in faith or go backward in unbelief.